Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 13th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on.
Keith Campbell. Here. Morris Jones.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here. Good to see you back, Brent.
Yeah.
Are there any changes to those minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have motion to approve. Is there Sierra? Motion and a second. All those here say aye.
Aye.
Will be ordinance 2022-14, the trash recycling. Ordinance 2022-14 off the table. Take ordinance 2022-14 off the table.
Off the table?
Yeah, because we made a motion to table it, so I need a motion to bring it back on.
Oh.
2022-14 off the table.
Oh, was that Mike?
He was first.
Motion, sorry, we're just clarifying who got the second. Motion second, all of you say aye.
Aye.
Just a reminder, we were prepared to vote on this, but we wanted to make sure we had the notice went out correctly, so we re-noticed it properly, so that's kind of where we are, the basics of this again. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I want to bear you with the collection and disposal of solid waste. Really, there's nothing, no new today. We did have a minor nuance issue, but it just gives the utilities the options for how they're billing that and setting up those customers as we begin to put this new ordinance in place, this new fee structure in place, and execute the contract for the new waste hauler. So with that, though, there's no other substantive changes to mention, and I'll happy to answer any questions or get more into details if you'd like, but it's for your consideration.
Any questions for Kevin from the council at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Since this is a rate increase, actually, I'll have you read it first, then we'll do the public hearing on it, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Ordinance 2022-14, again concerns an ordinance establishing the service rates and charges for the collection and disposal of solid.
Actually, I'm sorry, Rob. Actually, before we actually have it read, let's amend it first, if we'll make that technical correction with council. Is that fair to say? So we would like a motion to amend, I guess, section 4 to read charges collected by the city, sewage, water.
Second.
I think it's from Mike. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is now amended. Now go ahead, Rob, read it as amended.
Thank you. This council finds that by contracting for the residential garbage and rubbish removal on a citywide basis, the city may provide for better citywide rates, provide and encourage residential recycling, and otherwise benefit the general health and welfare of the residents of the city. The city, by using one trash collection service for the residents of the city, provides substantial savings to its citizens compared to each resident having to contract with private trash haulers. Pursuant to Indiana Code, this council is authorized to establish a fee to pay the cost of the city to collect and dispose of garbage and other trash in a sanitary manner, and to collect that cost as part of the charges collected, again, by the city's sewage, water, and/or electric works. This council believes it's fair and equitable to impose a fee to pay the cost of trash collection services provided city residents through the Board of Public Works and Safety. 2020. City, it's necessary to is amended. It's set forth in.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Public hearing on ordinance 2022-14. If you have any public comments, please step forward.
Motion. We approve ordinance 2022-14.
We have
the
motion.
Trash and recycling services billing ordinance.
We have a motion to approve. Can I have you amend your motion to approve as amended?
Do what?
Make the motion to approve ordinance as amended. Is there a second?
No, second.
Second from Keith. All those there say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That ordinance is approved. Thank you, council. The application area.
I'm going to need to come back to that.
Come back to that. Okay. Do I have consent to take the agenda out of order from council?
Yes, sir.
Consent? Okay. We'll move on to ordinance 2022-16 then, bond ordinance on the loan agreements and trust. Actually, let's do,
18.
you know what, let's do item C then.
Good idea.
Resolution 2022-13, which is the GEO bond concerning the new street department garage. And Tanya, you do have this one.
Right. Just a brief expert, but our budget was approved in November, so these payments were not allotted for our 2022 budgets this year in June and December, and then we'll have it on the agenda for next year. So with that.
The legal side, we already have the funds in the bond. It just needs to be put into our budget, essentially to pay out those
Right.
claims.
-13, the City of Lebanon is duly formed, corporate integrity and determined that is now necessary to approve as follows. Resolution 2022-13 is the appropriate funds for the interest on the GEO bond of 2022 for the street garage, Fund 3345.
Okay. Again, this does require a public hearing as well, so this time I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2022-13. If you have any public comment, please step forward. Seeing no sudden movements, I will close the public hearing on Resolution 2022-13. Any council discussion, comments, questions?
No, sir.
Okay. I would entertain a motion then concerning Resolution 2022-13.
Make a motion we approve Resolution 2022-13.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that resolution is approved. All right, ready now? All right, now we'll go back up to Resolution 2022-14, approving Plan Commission order for.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This Resolution 2022-14, again, approves an amending declaratory resolution and plan supplement of the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission and an order of the Lebanon of the Lebanon Department of Redevelopment of the City and the Lebanon Redevelopment District. And it previously adopted and amended resolutions, the original declaratory resolution that established the Lebanon Consolidated Economic Development Area and certain allocation areas, which include, among others, the 2017 expansion area and the field house allocation area, and approved an economic development plan for the area containing specific recommendations for economic development in the area. That's all defined as the plan pursuant to Indiana Code. On May 31st, 2022, the Commission adopted Resolution 2022-03, which amended the original declaratory resolution. It expanded the boundaries of the areas by the addition of the parcels that were described in Exhibit A to the amending declaratory resolution. It also designated the entire 2022 expansion area as part of the field house allocation area, further removed certain parcels from the 2017 expansion area and included those parcels in the field house allocation area as were described in Exhibit B that was attached to the amending declaratory resolution. It also adopted a supplement to the plan to add additional projects described in Exhibit C to the amending declaratory resolution. On June 6th of 2022, the Lebanon Plan Commission approved and adopted an order, which is defined as the Plan Commission order, approving the amending declaratory resolution and the 2022 amendments, determining that the amending declaratory resolution and the 2022 amendments conform to the plan of the development of the city, and it submitted the Plan Commission order to this council. The act requires approval of the amending declaratory resolution, the 2022 amendments, and the Plan Commission order by this council. Therefore, this council hereby finds and determines that it will be in the best interest of the city to expand the area as described in the amending declaratory resolution. This council hereby approves and determines that the 2022 expansion area is an economic development area pursuant to Section 41 of the Act. Pursuant to Section 16B of the Act, this council hereby approves, ratifies, and confirms in all respects the amending declaratory resolution, 2022 amendments, and the Plan Commission order. Clerk Treasurer is hereby directed to file a copy of the amending declaratory resolution and the Plan Commission order with the minutes of this meeting. This resolution shall be in full force and effect immediately from and after its passage and approval by the mayor.
Thank you, Rob. So essentially, a lot of legalese there, no, I know. But essentially what we're doing, this is part of the financing structure for the field house, right? So this allows us to, we're setting an allocation area within the TIF district that allows us to help finance to ensure that the field house project is not actually funded by the ratepayers. It's being funded by the increment generated by the field house and surrounding projects around it. So essentially, we're creating an area within our TIF district that says, this is the area we're using the funds to pay the financing on the field house, in layman's terms. And there's is that fair to say, Rob? Okay. Are there any questions on that? Again, part of one of just the kind of the legal steps for the field house. Questions, concerns? Any public comment on that? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion then concerning Resolution 2022-14.
Motion we approve Resolution 20-14.
We have a motion to approve from Sierra. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Morris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is approved. Thank you, council. Next up, and then Rob, you may have to explain what this one is for as well. Ordinance 2022-18, bond ordinance of the loan agreements and trust indentures for a field house project and public infrastructure project.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council.
Just one
Yep.
thing, for anybody who printed this out earlier on the council, it came to us as 2022-16. It was then changed once today to 17. It's now 18.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of paper flying around, as you can tell.
Yeah, this, Mayor, Council, this is first reading on ordinance 2022-18, which, again, is an ordinance that would authorize the city to issue certain economic development lease rental bonds and authorizing and improving basically everything that's set forth in this bond ordinance. And there's, so again, this will be a first reading. I'll go through and read this. You've heard much of what I'm going to say many times already, including some of which in the prior resolution, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions I may. But it'll set forth really the steps that are in here. You will have been provided copies of 2 loan agreements and 2 trust indentures, which are part of the approval. And those essentially are the same with the exception of some of the backup collateral, but one, as we know, deals with the field house project and the second deals with the public infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to get in here and it's going to be fairly wordy as well. All right. The City of Lebanon, again, is a municipal corporation, political subdivision of the state of Indiana. And pursuant to Indiana Code, this council is authorized and empowered to adopt this ordinance, which is defined as the bond ordinance, and carry out the provisions herein. Whereas the Lebanon Public Building Corporation was established as a nonprofit corporation for the purposes, among other things, for financing, leasing, buildings, and other capital improvements. In order to foster economic development, the city, the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission, the Building Corporation, and Card Athletic Facilities LLCs, the developer, desire to provide, again, for the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of basketball, volleyball courts, facilities, concession space, and other facilities, and that's all described, again, water mains, drainage, and related improvements. That is defined as the public infrastructure portion of the project. $1. Proceeds of those bonds to the building. Additionally, there will be the economic development, and that's the public infrastructure project that will not exceed B bonds. Again, these A bonds will be payable from note payments made by the building corporation under a loan agreement between the city and the building. those are defined as fieldhouse lease obligations. The city is a recipient of local income taxes classified as certified shares component of additional revenue derived from the expenditure tax rate under the LIT statute, and that's distributed monthly to the city pursuant to Indiana Code. On May 23, 2022, in accordance with Section 25.5 of the Act, this council adopted an ordinance pledging its monthly LIT to the payment of lease rentals due under the fieldhouse lease obligation. Those, again, are defined as pledged LIT revenues, and that's on parity with its pledge of LIT to the payment of lease rentals for the Lebanon Public Building Corporation Lease Rental Refunding Bond Series 2013. And that's prior LIT obligations. The Series B bonds will be payable from note payments by the building corporation under a loan agreement between the city and the building corporation, and lease payments made by the redevelopment commission as lessee under certain lease agreement with the building corporation as lessor that will enable the building corporation to make the note payments to pay debt service on the Series B bonds. On May 31st, 2022, the Lebanon Economic Development Commission conducted a public hearing in accordance with the Act pursuant to Indiana Code and adopted a resolution finding that the financing of the Fieldhouse project and the public infrastructure project comply with the purposes and provisions of Indiana Code, and such financing will be of fit to the health and general welfare of the city. The Economic Development Commission has approved and recommended the adoption of this form of bond ordinance to this council, and it's considered the issuance of adverse you've been provided between the city and the building corporation, Series A bond trust indenture between the city and a trustee to be selected by the city, which you've been provided, the Series B bond loan agreement between the city and the building corporation, and the Series B bonds trust agreements between the city and the trustee, as well as the bond ordinance defined as the financing documents. So therefore, this council finds and determines that the projects involved the acquisition, construction, and equipping of economic development facilities, as that phrased, as the projects will create employment opportunities and diversification of economic development in the city and improve and promote the economic stability, development, and welfare in the city. It will encourage and promote the expansion of industry, trade, and commerce in the city, opportunities and insufficient diversification of industry, and that they are greater than the cost of public services as that's defined in the Act, which will be required by the projects. The proposed financing of the projects and the financing of the costs related to the issuance of these bonds and the capital interest on the bonds or by a purchase of a surety policy is further described in the financing documents by the issuance of the bonds in one or more series as defined in the Act. The issuance of the bonds are payable solely from the revenues and receipts derived from the financing documents. Section 4 discusses the Series A bonds in one or more series, again in an amount not to exceed $35 million. The Series B bond will be an amount not to exceed the principal amount of $60 million that will be executed at or prior to the closing date, and they will mature on a date not later than 25 years after the date of issuance. They will bear a rate not to exceed 6.5% if tax exempt and 7.5% if taxable. They will be issued in such denominations as set forth in the financing documents, and they will be subject to registration on the bond register as provided for in the financing documents. This council hereby declares its intent to reimburse expenditures of the projects with the proceeds of the bonds. Upon the advice of the city's municipal advisors, to enhance the marketability of the bonds, bond insurance may be purchased from the proceeds of the bonds. The bonds and the interests do not and shall never constitute indebtedness or charge against the general credit or the taxing power of the city, but shall be special and limited obligations of the city payable solely from the revenues and other amounts derived from the financing documents. To provide for the payment of the Fieldhouse lease obligation over the term of the Fieldhouse lease obligation, it's hereby established a field house lease account. This gets into some of the technicalities if the prior stuff hasn't been technical already. But immediately upon receipt of monthly distributions of lit, there shall be deposited in the field house lease account an amount of the pledged lit equal to the sum at least of 1/6 of the lease rental due upon the following February 1st and August 1st until the amount so deposited shall equal the lease rental payable during the next succeeding 6 months. No such deposit of the pledged lit revenues need to be made in the field house lease account if the amount contained therein is sufficient to pay the lease rental. To the extent any other revenues legally available to the redevelopment commission are sufficient to make the lease rental payments due under the field house lease obligation, then the pledged lit revenues on deposit in the lease account may be released and used by the city for any other public purpose. And I can answer questions if you would like on that issue. The mayor and the clerk treasurer are authorized and directed to sell the bonds to a purchaser as described herein. The mayor and the clerk treasurer are authorized to approve the preparation and distribution of a preliminary official statement for the bonds. The mayor and the clerk treasurer are authorized and directed in the name and behalf of the city to execute and endorse and deliver the financing documents. The mayor and clerk treasurer on behalf of the city are further able to approve such changes in the financing documents as may be permitted by the act as defined in this ordinance. The mayor and the clerk treasurer, each of them are authorized and directed in the name and on behalf of the city to execute and endorse any and all agreements that are required to necessitate these actions. This bond ordinance shall be in full force and effect after passage and adoption and execution by the mayor. It's a mouthful.
Thank you, Rob. Exciting stuff, as always. Again,
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. Can you go back through it?
don't worry, we'll read it again. Remember, it's just first reading tonight. So, again, part of the financing structure of the field house project, again, we talked about the lit in there, all right, that's actually not going to be the revenue source paying it for it. But that's the backup on the bond essentially, right? So this is just part of that, kind of lays out the structure and the agreements, financial agreements between the building corporation, the redevelopment commission, all these different city boards working together to essentially finance this project. So that's what this kind of lays out. Were there any specific questions on this from council? Again, is this kind of the final step in this process, is it fair to say, Rob? We're pretty close? I mean, this is.
We will have, upon second reading, we still have a couple special meetings to approve.
But this is the bulk of the ordinance, right? This
Yep.
this is kind of the official
Yep.
Fieldhouse project
Yep.
ordinance, essentially,
Yep.
so. Any questions from council?
No, sir.
Okay. Any public comment at this time? Okay. That ordinance has been read on first reading. We will take that up at our next meeting, which will be June 27th at 7:15 PM. All right, that concludes what I have for new business. Is there anything from council?
No, sir.
Anything from the public? Okay, we'll move on to claims then. Entertain a motion concerning the claims.
Make a motion to pay the claims?
We have a
Second.
Motion to pay the claims, and a second from Brent. Yep. All those fair say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, claims are approved. Any announcements or discussion? Any general public comment? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Morris wants to leave. Motion second, all fair say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Our next city council meeting will be Monday, June 27th at 7:15 PM. Have a great night.
Thank you.